is a tax on a foreign country. That's the way it is, whether you like it or not. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's a tax on us. No, no, no. It's a tax on a foreign country. We're going to be a tariff nation. It's not going to be a cost to you. It's going to be a cost to another country.
That line might have worked on the campaign trail, but it is now time for Trump to put his money, or more accurately, America's money, where his mouth is. Yesterday, Trump got specific about those promised tariffs. He threatened that on day one of his second term, he would enact a 25% tariff on all goods from Canada and Mexico and add an additional 10% tariff on all goods from China. Now, you might remember that tariffs were a central part of Trump's first term. He loved tariffs and trade wars, as he called them, but they did not go well for him. Back then, Trump put tariffs specifically on all imported washing machines. And just as he is doing today, Trump promised that those tariffs on those washing machines would not be paid for by American consumers. But guess what? They were. Despite the fact that the price of washing machines had been declining for years at that point, the year Trump's tariff took effect, the price of washing machines in the U.S. surged, an average of $86 a machine. The American consumer very much paid the price. And now, this week, Trump is declaring that he wants to take that same concept and apply it to the vast majority of everything that America imports. Now, most of America's imports come from Mexico and Canada and China, the three countries that Trump is threatening to tariff. As an example, for years now, the U.S. has imported more crude oil from Canada than it has from the rest of the world combined. So for all of the Trump supporters who claimed one of their biggest issues was how expensive gas got under President Biden, well, buckle your seatbelts, folks, because gas may get a lot more expensive. Speaking of which, Trump's tariffs would likely make your car itself significantly more expensive. One Michigan-based auto industry consultant today told the New York Times the prospect of tariffs is a two-alarm fire for the auto industry. There is probably not a single assembly plant in Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, and Texas that would not immediately be affected by a 25% tariff. Chrysler makes minivans in Canada. Chevy and Ford make pickup trucks in Mexico. Economists say that all of those vehicles and many others would become significantly more expensive if Mr. Trump follows through on his threat. Those higher auto prices would have a significant effect on overall inflation, and higher car prices would probably lead to lower sales and layoffs at auto factories. Factory layoffs. Then there's the impact of Trump's tariffs on the cost of groceries. Mexico and Canada are two of the biggest exporters of fresh fruit and vegetables to the United States. In 2022, Mexico supplied 51% of fresh fruit and 69% of fresh vegetables imported into the U.S., while Canada supplied 2% of fresh fruit and 20% of fresh vegetables. Think about that. A combined 53% of all of our imported fresh fruits and a combined 89% of all of our imported fresh vegetables. 89% of all imported vegetables. That is a lot of vegetables. But I don't know, maybe you're someone who likes the sound of that. Maybe you think the U.S. should grow more of its fruits and vegetables domestically and just stop importing so much. Well, the problem there is that Trump's other signature promise could destroy that option, too. According to the Departments of Labor and Agriculture, nearly half of the nation's nearly 2 million farm workers lack legal status. The same is true of the workforce that makes up our domestic dairy and meat packing industries. Now, I am no professor of economics. Who am I to say that that would make American grocery prices skyrocket? Luckily for me, Reuters talked to a food economics and policy professor who told Reuters that mass removal of farm workers would shock the food supply chain and drive consumer grocery prices higher. It's not just grocery bills that will feel the impact of Trump's agenda here. Take housing costs. Not only does the U.S. get the majority of its imported lumber from Canada, which Trump's tariffs would make 25% more expensive, but Trump wants to deport the labor force that builds a gigantic portion of America's housing. This weekend, Texas's construction industry sounded the alarm about just how devastating Trump's promised deportations would be for the industry's capacity to build. The CEO of the construction giant Merrick told NPR it would devastate our industry. We wouldn't finish our highways. We wouldn't finish our schools. Housing would disappear. They'd lose half their labor. Tariffs on their own could devastate our economy. Mass deportation on its own could devastate our economy. And Donald Trump says he wants to do both on day one. Joining me now is Chris Hayes, host of All In. You may recall him from 5 minutes ago. And Faz Shakir, senior advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders and founder and executive director of More Perfect Union. Guys, it's great to have you here.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
Yikes, is what I have to say. I mean, the cascade effect is just staggering. When you talk about the most talked about policies, there weren't a lot that Trump sort of heralded on the campaign trail. Mass deportations and tariffs. What's so stunning, Chris, is like he tried, you pointed this out on your show. He tried this once before on soybeans, and it ended up with like subsidies that the American government had to pay the farmers who were the victim of retaliatory tariffs from China.
Yeah, it was basically the worst of all worlds, which is basically China retaliated. I mean, we import a ton from China, as everyone knows. There's a, made in China, it's a cliche. But we also export a lot of things to them, including American farmers. And so they said, okay, we retaliate. They put a tariff on our agricultural exports. Tons of soybean, for instance, just laying fallow. And then you ended basically have this weird situation where he took the revenue from the tariffs and used it to cut welfare checks to American farmers to make them whole. But it's like a lose-lose. Like, okay, well, you've got the money from the tariffs, and now you're just paying people money to not sell the product that they grew.
It's insane.
It's just a terrible. And the other thing about this is, for all the bluster, it wasn't like this experiment he did with, trade war resulted in some rebalancing of America's trade deficit with China or some new terms. It was professional wrestling.
Yeah. It's WWE economic policy.
And it went away. The question here is it going to be that again, which in some ways is weirdly the best case scenario? Or are they really going to drive the car off the cliff?
Well, right. Living on the precipice is such a morbid fascination of his, right? Maybe because he thinks it connotes strongman vibes. But really, I mean, Faz, if the goal of these punitive tariffs, in the case of China and to some degree Mexico, is to stop the trafficking of drugs over the border, the reality is that 95% of fentanyl seized by U.S. law enforcement is discovered in personal vehicles driven across the border by U.S. citizens. That's according to the DHS. I mean, Faz, this is a solution in search of the problem exists, right? Fentanyl is an issue. But this isn't, I mean, it won't even change the sort of root cause of why he wants to impose these tariffs to begin with.
Right. Well, you're right about the drug problem, and we've been dealing with the fact that, under the Biden administration had been actually, if you look at the actual facts and the statistics of fentanyl moving across the border, had been effectively starting to curb that. So there's that. And then in addition to that, I think if we're talking about tariffs, one thing that I'm honed in on is the idea that we got to fight for American workers. And in his best sense, Donald Trump is trying to at least advocate and articulate that that's a claim of what he's trying to do with tariffs, that if John Deere is going to move plants to Mexico to build tractors, if Stellantis is going to shut down, if Case New Holland is going to move to Mexico as well, that we're going to penalize everything that comes back across. What ends up happening, of course, you don't save those jobs. Those jobs still go over, and now we have nothing for the American worker. And what the Biden administration had been doing is investing in making the cost of starting these businesses attainable and investing from a government perspective in the communities so that both everything, education, housing, all of it worked together seamlessly to raise and lift all boats. But what Donald Trump's proposing is that we just basically lose-lose, the proposition that Chris Hayes was just laying out.
Yeah, and one of the things I think is worth, his best case scenario politically is people like, one of Donald Trump's strengths is that he sees everything zero sum, and I think a lot of voters see things in zero sum. Like, we are getting screwed, someone is screwing us, there's some pie, and someone's taking a big slice. Donald Trump, that's how he views everything, and this kind of rhetoric is extremely useful. So the best case scenario, like I said, is lots of theatrics over it, and he's going back and forth with Claudia Sheinbaum, who's the new president of Mexico, and she wrote him a letter today, and not a lot of stuff happening because the macroeconomic foundation of the country that he's inheriting is in very good shape.
Yes.
And to the extent that he, through ideological commitment or narcissism or whatever, is like, goes through with mass deportation and goes through with huge tariffs, it really will make things worse for people.
Well,
I mean, it's like an actual effect.
You have to imagine, Faz, that there will be some political cost. This is a man, Trump, who won voters making between $38,000 and $99,000 a year. These tariffs, which could raise costs on consumers up to $2,500. What's up?
On gas. Like
the most basic, sort of articulations of like how you're doing, how much you have to pay at the grocery store, whether you can afford to feed your family, whether you can take a road trip, whether you can afford the gas to get to your job. I mean, that would all be affected. I mean, that is, I guess, the insurance policy here is it would crater Trump's support among the very voters that supported him.
Well, let me first offer one of the reasons why he's moving in this direction, tariffs and deportation, is because it's a unique power afforded to the president. It's in some sense, it's the cheapest and easiest way out. Instead of having to negotiate with Congress or and figure out a tax proposal that would penalize corporations who are wrongly offshoring jobs, that would be a hard thing to do. We get into the tax code and figure out how to best levy a penalty on a corporation that does illegal actions. He's going to go for a tariff, which is a blunt force mechanism that he has, which is really an awful way to try to address this problem. But I just want to be clear why he's doing it, because he's not going the harder route to build a coalition and actually address this problem through a lot of different dimensions, right? You could do immigration policy this way, tax policy, whole series of actions that you could move through Congress if you wanted to be a leader on this and restructure our American economy to make sure, to the point that he's trying to raise, penalizing bad actors. Well, that we could agree on, but here's the Democratic Party has been trying to fight on, you name it, stock buybacks, dividends, corporate rates, loopholes in the corporate IRS auditing people. But these are all the things that Republicans have been trying to undermine for all the past couple of years.
Well, right. And I guess that, like, piggybacking on that, Chris, the hope is that the talk about mass deportations and the tariffs ends up being more rhetorical in nature than anything else, or the mass deportations are limited in scope but expanded in bluster, if you will.
I think he is more likely to really try to deport a ton of people than stick with a tariff regime that would start to like spook Wall Street and you know what I mean? Like he gets very spooked out when the Dow goes down.
But the farm industry is complaining to Trump. They're like, you can't deport all of our workers. We won't be able to, like, the whole system will start to break down if we lose half our labor force.
I will say this. There are more internal ideological and interest group contradictions bound up in this project than I've ever seen in a winning coalition. And it's true for all winning coalitions. If you win an election, you have people with different interests and different views in your coalition, and you have to... This has all been subsumed under the, like, cult of personality of Trump, but it's not going to be subsumed forever. Like, farmers have interest. They don't want their workers to...
Agriculture has a big interest in Washington, D.C.
Huge companies, home builders don't want lumber to be more expensive. Like,
or to lose their builders.
This is real stuff. And you can't just, like, do a rally and everyone project onto you that you agree with them when you actually have to start taking action.
Well, right. And I think, Faz, Chris raises such an important point in terms of the coalition, right? Like the deportation thing was seen during the campaign as like, oh, immigrant rights activists are talking about that. Now that it's on the front doorstep, you have big ag, you have the home construction industry. They're saying, wait. Those are coalitions that the Republican Party and Donald Trump would listen to. They're moneyed interests. They got a lot of lobbying power, and they're very much inside Washington, D.C.
And you're right that Tom Homan, who's going to run the deportation effort, is filled with animus. If you listen to him, he wants to jail people. I think he was suggesting jailing the Denver mayor. He's ready to go after everybody and send this very tough, I'm a sheriff and everyone's getting the hell out. What it's going to do, obviously, is cripple the actual economy. And I believe that, when you have the kind of scaring and the fear-based economy that Trump wants to have, you have people just exiting out of the labor force. You have people like going home and staying and hiding underground, not being around, waiting him out, essentially. That's partly what happened. You don't actually, create a vibrant economy where, other people come in and take these jobs. And, that's what we're going to have to wrestle with is just a fear-based economy that's filled with animus that doesn't even accomplish the goals that he wants, which is Americans would come in and take the jobs in Springfield, Ohio, for instance, right? That's in his mind. If you just kicked out a bunch of Haitians from Honda and Dole factories, white working class people would come in and take that job. That's not actually what would happen. You'd actually just decimate those factories here in America, and those workers would go underground.
Fear-based economy filled with animus. What could go wrong? Faz Shakir, thank you so much, my friend. Chris Hayes, thank you for pulling double duty. You get an extra slice of pecan pie.
It was great pleasure.
Come by anytime, friend.
You bet.
Coming up, the Trump grift continues. New reporting that a top Trump advisor was reportedly shaking down Trump's treasury pick for 30 grand a month. What Donald Trump wants to do about that, if anything, coming up next. But first, finally free from his leadership role, Mitch McConnell reportedly feels liberated and ready to stand up to Donald Trump. Maybe. We'll discuss that next.
Make this Christmas the year you go all in on joy. At Balsam Hill, celebrate with one of our beautifully crafted lifelike trees. For a limited time during our Black Friday sale, save up to 50% off plus free shipping. And start making memories at balsamhill.com.
You know what Blue Chew is? You could boost your numbers if you took it.
Never heard of Blue Chew.
Blue Chew? Yeah, you know Blue Chew?
Yeah, so it's like chewable tablet things like...
Oh, girl, how do you know Blue Chew?
Her man.
Come on. And it made you like him more, right?
Absolutely. Or you could...
Where do I get Blue Chew?
Oh, you want to know where you can get it now? Well, you can go online and get your first month free, actually, so...
Okay, I mean, can't say no to free month.
Would you date him if he took a Blue Chew?
I would have to go with a yes.
Look, you're in it, my boy.
Sounds like a date, man.
My boy.
Thank you, Blue Chew.
Want a flatter, tighter tummy? Then check out new Ab EX from Sono Bello.
After my pregnancies, my body just never bounced back. I had this stomach overhang.
Introducing Ab EX from Sono Bello. Remove fat and lose excess skin permanently in just one visit.
I got the tummy tuck results without the tummy tuck downtime. And I finally got the flat stomach I had always wanted.
Schedule your free, no obligation consultation. Call or go to sonobello.com now.
Black Friday football on Prime is back. Touchdown. The Raiders, the Chiefs, an old school rivalry for a new game day.
I'm here all day.
Raiders, Chiefs, Black Friday football, only on Prime.
You on guard tonight?
Oh, nah. They just got Simply Safe. It protects the whole home, inside and out.
Stop. This is Simply Safe.
Whoa!
That was impressive.
There's no safe like Simply Safe.
It's a lot to be a caregiver and a daughter because you kind of have to take a step back. Getting some help would be a great relief.
From companions to helpers to caregivers, find all the senior care you need at care.com.
After my hair started thinning, my dermatologist recommended Nutrafol. The formulas are clinically tested.
My hair is much stronger and longer.
I feel like I'm a completely different person.
Get growing at Nutrafol.com.
My favorite babysitter is Annalisa. She's pretty good. She's like my grandma. She says, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" And then we go skateboarding.
From babysitters to nannies to daycare centers, find all the care you need at care.com.
Great days start with great underwear, and Tommy John makes the greatest. We know that when you're free from distractions, anything is possible. That's why everything we make is meticulously crafted from breathable stretch fabric for the perfect fit, including our sleepwear that feels even softer than it looks. When you wake up to Tommy John, each day feels better than the last because greatness is in our very fabric. Go to TommyJohn.com now for up to 40% off site-wide.
If you're over 50, imagine you could turn back the clock on your stiff, achy joints 10, even 20 years. Imagine you could do this without products that just temporarily hide the symptoms. Imagine no more. Instaflex Advanced. Get a complimentary sample just by texting KNEE to 231231. Instaflex Advanced is different because it targets the root cause of joint soreness and stiffness. It doesn't just cover up symptoms. Instead, it bathes your joints in its unique combination of 5 key natural ingredients found in no other product. Key ingredients backed by 5 clinical studies. Instaflex Advanced is so powerful, you could have better knees in just 1 week. Maybe that's why it's #1 at GNC. But you can only get your complimentary sample by texting KNEE to 231231. Plus, text now and we'll include a tube of Instaflex pain cream with its exclusive oxygenated oil for fast-acting relief from the pain of arthritis, backaches, and sore muscles, absolutely free. Text KNEE to 231231.
The government thought that showing the world separation, they would scare people that were attempting to come from coming.
It troubles me profoundly that it could happen again.
Go beyond the headlines with the MSNBC app. Read, listen, and watch live breaking news and analysis anytime, anywhere. Go beyond the what to understand the why. Download the MSNBC app now.
We're not going to have the Senate have the legacy of McConnell to block President Trump. It will not happen. Matt Gaetz has withdrawn his nomination. And look, let's be brutally frank. You can't take this any other way than a Mitch McConnell win.
Despite predicting that nothing would stop Donald Trump from getting his cabinet picks confirmed, Steve Bannon has now conceded that something did, something named Mitch McConnell. Today, the New York Times reports that Senator McConnell is feeling liberated and prepared to defend his chamber's independence from Trump. But whether the man who privately mused about impeaching Trump before voting to acquit him and who refused to hold a hearing for President Obama's Supreme Court nominee in an election year and then expedited President Trump's pick in an election year, whether that guy is actually the resistance, well, that very much remains to be seen. Joining me now is Charlie Sykes, MSNBC contributor and columnist. Charlie, thank you for being here. I'm very eager to get your assessment of all this. The New York Times reports that McConnell wants to concentrate on preserving the Senate's institutional independence at a time when Trump has made clear he means to bend the chamber to his will. What do you think about Mitch McConnell being the sort of unlikely face of, I guess we'll call it, a resistance of sorts?
Well, extremely unlikely. And I think our default position has to be skepticism, because we've been through this before over and over and over again. But let's play a quick game of what if. What if, in the twilight of his career, Mitch McConnell actually does regret not disqualifying Donald Trump after January 6th? What if, in his heart of hearts, Mitch McConnell deeply does resent Trump's conduct and his racist slurs against his wife? What if Mitch McConnell actually does think that Donald Trump's foreign policy is dangerous? And what if, in fact, he is serious? I think that this is where I think you really draw the line, that he is serious about protecting the integrity of the institution, because Donald Trump, from the moment of his election, basically made it clear that he wanted to bend the Senate to his will, as you said. He wanted the Senate to surrender its powers of advice and consent. Mitch McConnell, at some point, is going to say, look, the way this system is set up under the Constitution, we are not potted plants. We are going to be jealous of our power, and we're not going to let you roll over. So the other what if that I think that we need to keep in mind, and again, I don't put a lot of stock in this, but what if at this point in his life, Mitch McConnell is all out of bleeps to give? What if he decides, I have nothing to lose? I am not going to be, I am not simply going to be another spear carrier for Donald Trump. You put all those things together, and you have the possibility of someone saying, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to do what I want to do, really for the first time in maybe 20 years in terms of not having responsibility in leadership. So again, default position, skepticism, but it's a really interesting question right now, especially going back to your last segment. I just want to underline one thing. You know, we're learning about the unilateral power of the president, all the things that Donald Trump will be able to do without congressional approval. The fact that he can unilaterally impose billions of dollars in taxes is extraordinary. I don't think a lot of people fully realize that. The fact that he does have the power to initiate mass deportation, the fact that he can use the Department of Justice. So this is a moment at which the Senate, in its historic constitutional role, can be a check on Donald Trump. And there's no love lost between these two men.
Yeah, that's for certain. It does beg the question whether the Senate led by Republicans with Mitch McConnell as kind of an engine under the water, if not the majority leader, is really going to show some backbone. I mean, I wonder what you make of McConnell's silence on Trump's most controversial cabinet picks, other than Matt Gaetz, who no longer is in the running. But, you know, he hasn't said anything about Pete Hegseth for defense secretary. He hasn't said anything about Tulsi Gabbard for director of national intelligence. And he hasn't said anything about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for HHS. Do you read anything into that silence? And I guess secondarily to that, do you think the Gaetz failure, the flame out of Matt Gaetz, is giving Republicans a sense of renewed faith in their own agency? Not that they came out and did anything about Matt Gaetz, but that Trump will relent in some cases? Or do you think they're, I mean, more gun shy, as it were, about, you know, killing off one of his nominees, rhetorically speaking, because he's already lost one and Donald Trump doesn't like to lose?
Well, to be honest, we don't know, but you've asked exactly the right question. I thought that the rejection of Matt Gaetz would make it harder for them to reject, you know, number 2 and number 3. In fact, however, they might possibly be, you know, getting a sense that they do have agency, that they're not potted plants, that they are able to have real influence in this. And Mitch McConnell's role, I think, is going to be a lot of this behind closed doors, where he's going to sit with others and give them, I don't know, encouragement, permission, a little bit of cover to say, hey, why are we here? We're United States senators. Are we going to roll over? Do you really think that America is safer with Pete Hegseth in charge of the Department of Defense? Do you really want to put the entire Western Alliance at risk with Tulsi Gabbard in that position? Do you really want to have one of your first votes to be to confirm a conspiracy theorist like RFK Jr.? And so there are others that I think might be emboldened by this. I mean, look, one of obviously the first early test is going to be on these confirmations, but there's a real difference between Mitch McConnell and people like Mike Rounds, for example, in the Senate, who have been allied with Trump on issues like Ukraine. And when it comes down to it, what stand will they take against a Donald Trump that wants to throw NATO under the bus or wants to cut off Ukraine? That may be a red line for some of them. And again, with 53 votes, you don't need more than a handful. And again, we've seen this over and over again, the way they cave in. But, you know, new day, new game, new personnel.
Yeah, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Tom Tillis, Mitch McConnell. I can't believe I'm saying those names. The nation turns its lonely eyes to you, Charlie Sykes. Thank you for your time, sir, tonight.
Thank you.
Still to come this evening, a tale of 2 Trump loyalists. After risking his livelihood trying to help Donald Trump retain power in 2020, Rudy Giuliani says he is so poor right now he cannot even afford a New York City taxi cab. Meanwhile, Trump's inner circle is reportedly investigating his longtime advisor, Boris Epstein, for trying to monetize Epstein's access to Trump. We'll have more on both of those stories coming up next.
For more than a decade, Farxiga has been trusted again and again and again.
Farxiga.
Ask your doctor about Farxiga.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
The struggle for equal rights in the United States has been hard fought. But even today, we're still fighting for racial justice, for voting rights, and against hate and extremism. You can help us win the fight and envision a future where all Americans can thrive by joining the Southern Poverty Law Center today. Please call now or go online to helpfighthate.org to become a friend of the center. All it takes helpfighthate.org today.
Want a flatter, tighter tummy? Then check out new Ab EX from Sono Bello.
After my pregnancies, my body just never bounced back. I had this stomach overhang.
Introducing Ab EX from Sono Bello. Remove fat and lose excess skin permanently in just one visit.
I got the tummy tuck results without the tummy tuck downtime.
And I finally got the flat stomach I had always wanted.
Schedule your free, no-obligation consultation. Call or go to sonobello.com now.
I knew that something was different. I knew it, I called it, and look what I found today.
It's Blue Chew.
Blue Chew.
Blue Chew? Blue Chew.
Blue Chew.
Blue Chew. Blue Chew.
The Holy Grail. This is the secret. If you don't know, now you know. You can get it on a subscription model, so men can get delivered every month. And for the ladies, let your man know, and you're welcome in advance.
With Car Gurus, do as much or as little as you want online. If only you could do things your way all the time. A delightful thought. Get it with Gurus.
The future. The way you see it is said to depend on where you sit. At X-Chair, we think it also gets down to how you sit, which is why our technology is light years ahead. X-Chair has done it again with our groundbreaking LMX technology, providing hours of infinite comfort no matter where in the world you're sitting. By synthesizing the universe's elements, bringing hot, cold, and touch into one extraordinary seating experience, our mission is to help you discover that every workday can happen with body and mind in an out-of-this-world place of comfort and productivity. X-Chair is charting a new course, helping workers everywhere find comfort as their work worlds zoom back and forth. Even though your work reality may continue to shift, we've got our eye on the future of work so you can focus on the present. And from where we sit, the future still feels good. Visit xchair.com during our cyber sale. Shop now for 25% off all new office chairs, desks, and accessories.
The reality is, I have no cash. It's all tied up. So right now, if I wanted to call a taxi cab, I can't do it. I don't have a credit card. I don't have a checking account. I have no place I can go take cash out except a little bit that I saved, and it's getting down to almost nothing.
That was Donald Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, pleading poverty outside of a federal courthouse in New York City today. Now, the reason Mr. Giuliani is so strapped for cash is that he has been ordered to pay nearly $150 million to Georgia election workers Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss for defaming them as part of Trump's scheme to undermine the results of the 2020 election. You might be thinking to yourself, how is it that Rudy Giuliani hasn't been able to turn his fortunes around at a time when his number one guy, Donald Trump, is about to retake the White House? Well, self-proclaimed billionaire Donald Trump has reportedly not offered to cough up any of his own money to pay Rudy's legal bills. Trump has apparently done little, if anything, to help his old pal Giuliani beyond participating in a fundraiser for him last year. In fact, as recently as last month, Giuliani claimed that the Trump campaign and the RNC still owed him $2 million. What Giuliani appears to have forgotten is the one inviolable rule of being in Trump's orbit. Nobody profits off Trump but Trump. Unwavering loyalty to Trump might earn you an endorsement or a place in his administration or even a presidential pardon after serving a few months in jail for things you did in Trump's service. But money flows in one and only one direction, towards Trump. And now there is another Trump world figure learning that same lesson. Yesterday, multiple news outlets reported that the Trump transition is investigating longtime Trump aide Boris Epstein for trying to personally profit off of Trump's presidency. According to The Times, several people whom Mr. Trump trusts had alerted him that Mr. Epstein was seeking money from people looking for cabinet appointments. The Trump transition team then conducted a review, which found that Boris Epstein had sought payment from two people, including Scott Bessent, who Mr. Trump recently picked as his nominee for Treasury Secretary. Scott Bessent reportedly decided not to pay Epstein a reported $30,000 fee for the promotion of his candidacy around Mar-a-Lago, according to the Washington Post. In a call set up between the two men, Epstein said he was bored Boris effing Epstein, sorry, and that Besson should have paid for his services sooner. Boris Epstein denies any wrongdoing here, and I should note that so far the Trump team has not actually taken any action against Boris Epstein beyond launching this investigation and apparently leaking it to multiple news outlets. As for Donald Trump himself, it appears his goal is not to distance himself from Boris Epstein, but to remind him who is in charge. As Trump told conservative columnist John Solomon, "It's a shame, but it happens. But no one working for me in any capacity should be looking to make money." Nobody, that is, except the man at the top. In just a second, I'll talk to Congressman Jim Himes about the people Donald Trump is choosing to surround himself in a second term and what he expects from them. That's next.
When I was diagnosed with HIV, I didn't know who I would be.
But here I am, being me.
Keep being you and ask your healthcare provider about the #1 prescribed HIV treatment, Biktarvy.
Biktarvy is a complete one-pill, once-a-day treatment used for HIV in many people, whether you're 18 or 80. With one small pill, Biktarvy fights HIV to help you get to undetectable and stay there, whether you're just starting or replacing your current treatment. Research shows that taking HIV treatment as prescribed and getting to and staying undetectable prevents transmitting HIV through sex. Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems and kidney failure. Rare, life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems. Don't take Biktarvy if you take dofetilide or rifampin. Tell your healthcare provider about all the medicines and supplements you take. If you are pregnant or breastfeeding or have kidney or liver problems. If you have hepatitis B, don't stop taking Biktarvy without talking to your healthcare provider. Common side effects were diarrhea, nausea, and headache.
No matter where life takes you, Biktarvy can go with you. Talk to your healthcare provider today.
All it takes is one item for Quince and you're hooked. I'm guilty. This cashmere, $50. And the quality of this should be illegal. I love good quality clothes that is affordable and for everybody. There's no gatekeeping here.
Get $20 off your first purchase at quince.com.
We all need fiber for our digestive health, but less than 10% of us get enough each day. Good thing Metamucil gummies are an easy way to get prebiotic plant-based fiber with the same amount of fiber as 2 cups of broccoli. Metamucil gummies, the easy way to get your daily fiber.
Love you. Have a good day, behave yourself.
Like, she goes to work at 3 in the afternoon and sometimes gets off at midnight. She works a lot. A whole lot. We don't get to eat in the early morning. We just wait till we get to the school. So, yeah.
Right now, here in America, millions of kids like Victoria and Andre live with hunger, and the need to help them has never been greater. When you join your friends, neighbors, and me to support No Kid Hungry, you'll help hungry kids get the food they need.
If we want to take care of our children, then we have to feed them.
Your gift of just 63 cents a day, only $19 a month at helpnokidhungry.org right now will help provide healthy meals and hope.
We want our children to grow and thrive and to just not have to worry and face themselves with the struggles that we endure. Nobody wants that for their children.
Like, if these programs didn't exist, me and AJ, we wouldn't probably get lunch at all.
Please call or go online right now with your gift of just $19 a month. And when you use your credit card, you'll receive this limited edition t-shirt to show you're part of the team that's helping feed kids and change lives.
If you're coming in hungry, there's no way you can listen to me teach, do this activity, work with this group. So starting their day with breakfast and ending their day with this big, beautiful snack is pretty incredible.
Whether kids are learning at school or at home, your support will ensure they get the healthy meals they need to thrive. Because when you help feed kids, you feed their hopes, their dreams, and futures. Kids need you now more than ever. So please call this number right now to join me in helping hungry kids, or go online to helpnokidhungry.org and help feed hungry kids today.
I'll be honest. By the end of the day, my floors, yeesh. But who has the time to clean? That's why I love my Swiffer WetJet. It's a quick and easy way to get my floors clean. WetJet absorbs and locks grime deep inside. Look at that. Swiffer WetJet.
For the most comfortable, luxurious, eco-friendly, and affordable, handcrafted American-made mattresses on the market today. Delivered and set up in any room of your house. Saatva. Luxury mattresses made affordable.
Dad, I'm happy you're back.
You were undercover for years. People come back damaged from that.
How much longer is the unit planning on watching me 24/7?
Is it possible that you have something to hide?
I was in a relationship. It's complicated.
I know how hard this is. Heart versus job. Soul versus duty. But you signed up for this.
We all did.
While former Congressman Matt Gaetz flamed out after hitting one of the very few guardrails left in Trump's D.C., Trump's remaining appointees may have a much easier time getting confirmed. According to reporting by Hugo Lowell at The Guardian today, Trump officials are set to receive immediate clearances and easier FBI vetting. Lowell reports that Trump's political appointees will only face FBI background checks after the incoming administration takes over the FBI and its own officials are installed in key positions. Here to explain why that should be alarming to everybody is Democratic Congressman Jim Himes, ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, I'm glad to have you here. I mean, on its face, it seems disturbing that you would do away with the FBI vetting process, but another layer is waiting until Trump officials are actually installed and have access to, classified information and, state secrets before you actually begin to vet them. What troubles you most about this potential scenario?
Not surprising, right? We saw this as a president who decided he would take very sensitive materials with him to Mar-a-Lago. That criminal case, of course, has been dismissed, but this is an administration and a president who has shown disregard for classified information. And the reason this is so important is because, particularly in a complicated world, Iran, North Korea, China, Russia, desperate to understand our secrets, to know the capabilities that we have. And you can spin any number of scenarios. I mean, one of the reasons we do background checks is to see if perhaps an individual with access to classified information maybe has friends who we suspect of being spies, who maybe has something in their background that could be used to blackmail them. Something that is not known, but a Chinese intelligence officer can say, hey, if you don't, report back to me on XYZ, we're going to expose you here. So it's a dumb risk to take, especially since at the end of the day, transitions are used to getting this done very, very quickly in a way that does protect national security.
I got to ask you, I think that the question seems obvious, the answer seems obvious at first, but because of your expertise, I'm curious to know how you think about this. We have reporting that the Trump team has been relying on private lawyers to do some of the background checks for its appointees. I am aware that they would presumably have less eyes on in terms of potential compromised, positions some of these appointees may have. But could you talk specifically about how much weaker a vetting by a private lawyer would be compared to a proper FBI background check?
Sure. I mean, look, a private lawyer is being paid an hourly fee, right? And they may be reasonably good at a, traditional civil investigation. But, looking into somebody's background, understanding who is connected to who, that Korean individual that you actually spent a week with in London 2 weeks ago, there's no way that a lawyer, in the United States who has access to the kind of information and an understanding for the networks that exist out there designed to compromise these people in the same way that the FBI would. So look, it's a silly thing. It's particularly silly given that a lot of the folks, you start with Matt Gaetz, who fortunately is off the scene right now, but Tulsi Gabbard was an elected official, a member of Congress, ran for president, has never been through this process, has never had, to my knowledge anyway, other than perhaps because of her service in the National Guard, access to, strategic level secrets. And so there's just a huge, huge exposure here that need not be undertaken, but the Trump administration just seems to be, partly just pointing a big middle finger at anything that is traditional or conventional, a lot of it which is there for a reason.
Seems to be pointing a big middle finger, or actually is. Tulsi Gabbard, the job of investigating Tulsi Gabbard's background has fallen in some ways to the media. Mother Jones has an investigative piece looking at Tulsi Gabbard's numerous super PACs. There are multiple ones that have, and they found unidentifiable donors, suspicious spending. There are a lot of questions about who was bankrolling effectively some of her campaign arms. I know you're not in the Senate, but if she is, in fact, goes through the confirmation process, what questions would you have for Tulsi Gabbard, seeing as she could be the director of national intelligence?
Well, look, I've worked with a number of directors of national intelligence for a long time. There's really two key characteristics in that job. Number one, it's a massive administrative job, coordinating 17 or 18 different intelligence agencies. It's a huge leadership, management, almost like corporate management, like running a big corporation. Number one, that is not something that Tulsi Gabbard has ever done. She's run for elected office pretty much her whole life. And so there is a question about whether she's got the basic managerial competence. And even more concerning, and the second attribute of a good senior intelligence person is that they, regardless and at any cost, will speak truth to power. They cannot let their own opinions, they cannot let, the concern about what the boss may want to hear interfere with what they say. And look, Tulsi Gabbard has been a purveyor of conspiracy theories for a long time, that they were doing, biomedical experiments in Ukraine, and maybe that's why Russia invaded Ukraine. I mean, the conspiracy theories go on and on and on. And if I were a senator, I would want to say, hey, what's the deal? What is your attraction to these conspiracy theories? And how can you make me comfortable that, you will be nothing but 100% straight shooter when you provide intelligence to the President of the United States?
What do you make of Trump commissioning an investigation into Boris Epstein, his longtime his lawyer, who apparently was trying to shake down potential cabinet nominees? Do you think it's like a sign of hope that Trump's vaguely interested in, grift? I'm saying that with, the caveat that it is Trump we're talking about.
Well, look, it's, the intensity of the grift is just staggering. I mean, we've seen this from moment one, and it must be really confusing to be in the Trump orbit, right? Because on the one hand, this is the guy that sells Trump Bibles and Trump steaks, Trump University, Trump this, Trump that, even while campaigning, Trump sneakers, and it's okay for him to do that. The boss gets to do it, but no one else gets to do it. That must be sort of a confusing thing for it to be permissioned in the top guy, but obviously potentially a firing offense if you're not the top guy. So it must just be, a crazy town inside that operation.
I learned it from you, Dad. I learned it from watching you. Do you guys remember that ad? I'm betraying my age here. Congressman Jim Himes, thank you again for your time tonight. Really, really great to have your perspective and expertise on this.
Thank you, Alex.
Still ahead this evening, anti-abortion conservatives are waging a war of words on women's health care, but it is causing real deaths. ProPublica has the latest on yet another death because of a conservative abortion ban. I'll speak with Michelle Goldberg about that coming up next.
If you're living with HIV, imagine being good to go without daily HIV pills. Good to go binge watch. Good to go out even later. With Cabenuva, there's no pausing for daily HIV pills. For adults who are undetectable, Cabenuva is the only complete, long-acting HIV treatment you can get every other month. It's 2 injections from a healthcare provider, as few as 6 times a year. Don't take Cabenuva if allergic to its ingredients or taking certain medicines that may interact. Serious side effects include allergic reactions or rash, post-injection reactions, liver problems, and depression. If these occur, get medical help right away. Tell your doctor about your medicines or supplements, medical conditions, liver or kidney problems, mental health, pregnancy, and breastfeeding. The most common side effect is injection site reaction. With Cabenuva, you're good to go without daily HIV pills. Talk to your doctor about switching.
My hair was thinning all around my hairline.
My dermatologist recommended Nutrafol. It's 100% drug-free and clinically tested.
My hair is longer, thicker.
Nutrafol is life-changing for me.
Get growing at Nutrafol.com.
For more than a decade, Farxiga has been trusted again and again and again.
Farxiga.
Ask your doctor about Farxiga.
Want a flatter, tighter tummy? Then check out new Ab EX from Sono Bello.
After my pregnancies, my body just never bounced back. I had this stomach overhang.
Introducing Ab EX from Sono Bello. Remove fat and lose excess skin permanently in just 1 visit.
I got the tummy tuck results without the tummy tuck downtime.
And I finally got the flat stomach I had always wanted.
Schedule your free, no obligation consultation. Call or go to sonobello.com now.
Listen, I might not be a relationship expert, but I do have some hacks. They say, Lauren, what's the secret to a long, sustained relationship? It's Blue Chew. Blue Chews. Blue Chew? Blue Chew. Blue Chew. Blue Chew. Blue Chew. Blue Chew, baby! Blue Chew is an online subscription-based service that sends these affordable tablets directly to your home. No one even has to know. Except for me. But I'm not gonna tell on you.
I was out on delivery when I came across a snake, a rattler.
FedEx presents Tall Tales of True Deliveries.
There we were, driver versus reptile. Our battle was legendary. Wait a second. You don't own a pet snake, do you? Maybe now, my friends will believe me.
If this is what we did for one delivery, see what we can do for your business. FedEx.
Do you have a life insurance policy you no longer need? Now you can sell your policy, even a term policy.
Only on MSNBC.
Since September, ProPublica has reported on several women known to have died because of abortion bans. Yesterday, the outlet published the story of a fifth woman, 35-year-old mother of two, Portia Gamezzi, who died hemorrhaging from a miscarriage at a hospital in Texas where abortion is banned from the moment of fertilization. Multiple medical experts who reviewed Portia's case agreed that she needed a procedure called a D&C, which is often used in abortions but is still technically allowed in the state of Texas. But doctors often avoid administering D&Cs because they risk a 99-year prison sentence if they're found to have performed an abortion illegally. ProPublica's reporting shows that Portia's death was preventable, but Texas law seems to have pressured her doctor to abandon the standard of care, an increasingly prevalent pattern in states with abortion bans. Joining me now is Michelle Goldberg, New York Times opinion columnist. Michelle, it's great to have you with me.
Thank you.
This is the new playbook. I mean, just kind of trying to decouple abortion care from health care. And you see what the results are here when you say, when you sort of untether abortion care from just the basic survival of a patient.
Right. And I think that one thing that's happened is that these laws have such narrow exceptions, and the exceptions don't end up meaning anything in practice, because when you're in a chaotic environment of an emergency room, when can the doctor say, someone's life as opposed to merely their health is at stake, right? That is a very fine line. And Texas changed the law to allow for emergency abortions in cases of premature rupture of membranes. It's when your water breaks early. But it's not that you can't be investigated and prosecuted. It's what's called an affirmative defense, which means if you are taken to court and charged with this felony, you can use this fact in your defense. So this is like, very few people are willing to risk that kind of persecution and, risk seeing their life and their career go up in smoke. And even I think if doctors want to do the right thing, and there's some question in this case about kind of just
whether
negligence,
the doctor,
I think. But when you have that threat hanging over your shoulder, and not just yours, but kind of everybody in the process, everybody in the bureaucracy, it's just always going to kind of be a finger on the scales against doing what needs to be done.
Well, right. And Jessica Valenti, the sort of, I'm not going to call her Eminence Grise because she's young, very young. But one of the great writers on abortion writes that the effort to redefine and replace abortion in legislation has always been about laying the groundwork for one central and false argument, that abortion is never medically necessary. And that's sort of what you're seeing articulated here, right? Like, you can be basically you're hemorrhaging, but we're not going to give you a D&C because that's actually not medical. The more, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. The reason they won't put medically necessary exemptions into these laws is because then they would have to admit that there's such a thing as a medically necessary abortion.
And the other piece of it, right, the other self-fulfilling prophecy of women not getting this, of the standard of care being abandoned, is that the doctors who specialize in this sort of stuff, the OBGYNs, that are practicing in the state of Texas and capable of performing in D&C are increasingly few in number, right? There's one study that says 21% of OBGYNs polled in the state of Texas are considering or planning to leave the state because of these bans. You have a massive brain drain that's going to happen here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a real moral injury to doctors when they don't feel like they can treat their patients the way their professional and ethical obligation requires. And so you've already seen an uptick in the maternal mortality rate in Texas. It's, I think, unclear how much of that was due to the immediate after effects of COVID and how much of it was due to the abortion ban. They coincided, but at least some of it seems to be due to the abortion ban. And it's only going to get worse as this trickles down through every single aspect of maternal health care.
Well, and the other piece of that is, in order to sort of like cast a shadow over that reality, just as they're doing in Georgia, Texas, I believe, is avoiding the collection of data on women who have died from the Texas ban because they just have too many cases.
Or they're avoiding the examination of data, right? Because they have these maternal mortality review boards that go through and say, there is this death that could have been prevented. What were the circumstances? Could it have been prevented? What should we change our policies so that deaths like this don't happen in the future? Yeah, in Georgia, after the ProPublica story about these two women who've died, they dissolved their maternal mortality review board. And in Texas, they've just decided that they're not going to look at cases from 2022 and 2023, which happened to be the 2 years after the abortion ban.
And then the last piece of it is some of these complications arise from abortion medication, misoprostol, mifepristone, not working because of extenuating circumstances, being administered incorrectly in the case of this one woman in Texas that we're talking about tonight. And that the anti-choice movement uses to sort of hold aloft and say, this is why you can't have medication abortion.
Well, right. I mean, they certainly did that in Georgia, where it was a woman who had gotten medication in a neighboring state, gone back, had complications that were left untreated. I think what you'll see in a new Trump administration is those kind of cases used as a pretext to crack down on mail-order abortion providers.
I think almost certainly that is what we're going to see. Michelle Goldberg, thank you for wading through this thicket of very, very dark news. I appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
That is our show for this evening. Now it is time for the last word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Good evening, Lawrence.
Good evening, Alex. And I so much wanted to get one of the first words on your show tonight when you were talking about tariffs with Chris Hayes. I love that segment, everything about it. And here's my thought, having listened to you all, because it's impossible, right? It will destroy the economy. The mass deportations will destroy the economy. So he won't do it. He'll get to February.
That's the whole question, right?
Yeah, he'll get to February and say, oh, just me threatening the tariffs was enough. And now Canada and Mexico are behaving. That's the only thing I can imagine.
That's his out, is that it's just all bluster. It's just kind of, strongman, fanboy, smoke and mirrors, I guess.
He's going to be given
the best outcome, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be given the greatest economy, and then he's going to ruin it and ruin Wall Street. We'll see. We will see.
Listen, next time you like a conversation that Chris and I are having, feel free to just come to the glass doors. I often see
Alex,
you. Just you're welcome.
It was like the old days when we used to begin this show with you and Chris. I was watching, thinking exactly that. I should run down there.
We'll happily come visit you anytime.
But I noticed on the set there was no extra chair. Like if I'd run out there, it would have been really awkward.
From now on, Lawrence, just in case, if you get the feeling